All right, guys, back again. iCoach VIP members. Guys, today I'm representing because I'm super excited to have a good buddy of mine, somebody that I met back in Wadapalooza back in my CrossFit competing days. And now he's blowing it up with LIFEAID. So Mr. Co-founder and president, Aaron, how you doing, my man?
Justin, good to be here. And I see you got the shirt memo because I'm wearing the same one today.
I think I have the older version, but
yeah. This one I think's a solid color. Looks good on you though.
Thanks so much for taking the time today, man. I know you're an extremely busy guy. I know you've already, like we were talking before this, hit the ground running for 2019.
That's right.
For the viewers watching and listening, can you just tell us a little bit more about you and your company and kind of, just how you came about?
Yeah, I mean, we started, LIFEAID in 2011, really out of ignorance and passion. I mean, I had no beverage experience. Orion, my business partner, had no beverage experience. I was a sports chiropractor. That's kind of what got me involved in CrossFit to begin with back in the early days. And Orion was a certified financial planner. We met in CrossFit North Santa Cruz in Scotts Valley, where CrossFit headquarters is at. And we became buddies. And again, it was just kind of ignorance. I'd been working with a lot of athletes and constantly been encouraging them to get off the high sugar, high caffeine, artificially sweetened sports and energy drinks. And they always say, same thing. Well, look, I drink water, but it's boring. And it's boring. Like, what would you recommend? And there was nothing at the time really to recommend. Coconut water had just hit the scene, and that was a very acquired taste. Kombuchas were very new, but they were very hippy-dippy and acquired taste. So Orion and I, one evening kind of BSing, just had this wild idea of creating a clean nutritional drink company without all the garbage and putting all the good stuff in there.
Yeah. Well, and I know that was probably definitely a struggle, right? Because it's like when you remove all those things, it's like, how do you make it taste good?
That's the biggest struggle. That was actually the very first struggle when we went to the lab for formulation. Funny story. The food scientists took my Excel spreadsheet where I kind of reverse engineered what we wanted to be in the drink based on efficacy, based on PubMed articles that had been published, supporting the use of various supplements and different combinations of those supplements, specifically for, at the time we were formulating FitAid, which most people know, GolferAid and PartyAid. And she looked at those formulations and said, yeah, this looks great, but you'll never get it to taste great without any artificial sweeteners. And so she recommended cutting the supplement levels in half and or using artificial sweeteners. And I grabbed the paperback from her, said, well, appreciate your help, but I guess we're in the wrong place. And we started to walk out. And she said, whoa, hold on, you're here. We already got the lab time. Let's go ahead and work on it. And we worked at it. And for any of you out there that remember that first can of FitAid, it did not taste that great. But fortunately, we've gotten a lot better as time's gone on, and we've gotten that pretty dialed in.
Yeah, no, and I would completely agree. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I tasted like some of the first products, because I mean, I remember like when y'all launched. I mean, that was like right when I met you. I mean, maybe.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I could definitely vouch for that. Even in those early years, I mean, you could definitely tell a difference pretty fast.
Yeah.
I think at Wadapalooza that year was when y'all actually released the pouches.
Yeah, we released the pouch, let's see, a few years after the drink launch. I think we released the pouch in like probably 2015 or 2016, maybe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So before, you started off, you were a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And then so somehow like now you're in the beverage industry. Like, so, being a chiropractor, and were you running your own practice then as well, or?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was a solopreneur. I had a great practice, saw about 30 new patients a month, all by referral. So I really didn't have to do any external marketing. Had a great referral-based practice, did really good work, worked with a lot of athletes. And it was a great income, great lifestyle. I didn't realize how cush I had it until I made the pivot over here, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to dive into that a little bit. Like my story is kind of similar. Like I left like a comfortable job this last year and started my own business. And like, obviously that's like a very big, scary thing, taking the leap. So like, can you talk a little bit about that transition and like, obviously like the thoughts that were going through your head, but like, maybe just dealing with some of that scarcity mindset maybe in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple good things. I mean, one, when you're making a large life transition, I think you really need to follow, your passion. Where I was at the time with chiropractic, I had been in it for 10 years. I had basically maxed out for where I was at that point in time, what I thought was possible. I could only see so many patients in a day. I'd kind of maxed out from an income perspective, which was lucrative. It was a great income and it was low stress, but I lacked further challenges in that profession. So when, the LifeAid opportunity came about and started to get some traction, that's where I found myself getting really excited to wake up in the morning and, see what we could come up with, see how we could acquire some new customers, what kind of products we could produce. So my passion was there. It's very difficult. And I think anyone out there that's tried to do this can attest to serve two masters, meaning, you can't have a successful chiropractic business and a successful drink business at the same time, because as you're giving your time and attention that you have dedicated for work to one thing, then the other thing's going to suffer. So at some point in time, you need to make a decision to push the chips all in. And, we made that decision probably way too early. I would never recommend burning the ships at the shore until you have some traction and proof of concept. So I think we made that decision too early. Thank God it worked out. When you mentioned scarcity mindset, it took me a while to learn, and I still struggle with it daily, but to really embrace what it means to come from an abundance mindset. When I was a chiropractor, I had a lucrative income, I had new patients, I had all the things that you would want as a solopreneur, but I always approached things for whatever reason in scarcity. Like, I could never go on vacation. I never went on never took more than 4 days off in 10 years straight, just everything my operating procedures was much more from scarcity. When I went into LifeAid, I didn't have any income. Things were very much more scarce, but my mindset shifted to an abundance mindset, and I was able to create a reality over time that matched that mindset. So, it's very important for anybody out there to really embrace abundance. It's difficult at times. Again, I still struggle with it. Know that, money is just energy, man. Money is energy that flows. You know, it's an exchange for value creation. And so go out there and create value, and don't be afraid to give it away. Donate to your church. Go give, $20 to a homeless guy. Like, your life will continue. I promise you. You can make impacts in other people's lives, and then you'll see that over time come back in spades.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the statement. It's like, impact over income. I think like income follows the impact that you're making. So when you, I'm always so curious, like what made y'all jump into like the CrossFit space initially? Like what made y'all start with a FitAid product first?
Well, Orion and I met in CrossFit North Santa Cruz. So when we had the idea of LifeAid, which was in January of 2011 on his birthday, we had registered 80 domain names in one night. We actually had started with Party Aid was our original concept, because we were going to festivals together, and this was we had a blend specific for festival goers. That's the current Party Aid blend. It's 5-HTP and milk thistle and B vitamins and electrolytes. But as we're going down the Party Aid rabbit hole, we're like, man, we work out at CrossFit. There's no drink in CrossFit. Let's do FitAid. Let's see if that's available. Oh, there's no drink in golf. We golf together. Let's do golf raid. Let's see if that's available. I mean, like I said, we got 80 domain names in one night. We even got boneraid.com for $12. So whoever thought all the good domains were already taken was mistaken.
Wow, that's crazy. So, wow, I mean, that's mind blowing. It kind of reminds me back, a mentor of mine, like probably 8-9 years ago, he was really successful. And I was doing personal training at that time, and I was training his wife. And I just asked him one day, I was like, hey, like, if you could recommend, some books that I could read, like I would love to like kind of be like you when I grow up. And so he gave me a list that night of 50 books. And that night I bought all 50 books.
Nice.
And, it was just one of those things. It was like so powerful, but like in that moment, most people probably would have bought maybe one domain or two. Like there's no way in hell people would have bought that many domains.
Well, just like buying all 50 books, when you're committed to a certain path, you got to commit, not go lukewarm, right? I think it's a biblical verse that says, I'd rather you be hot or cold, for if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. And that always stuck with me because I'm pretty hot or cold on things, and I don't like to be too wishy-washy.
Yeah, I love that. So dude, talk to us a little bit. Like I was telling you before, obviously I've listened to several podcasts that you're on and things like that, but overcoming adversity has been something really big in my life and most people's lives that they have to go through. So maybe could you share like some of your big points with you overcoming adversity, whether it be with LifeAid or even maybe before that?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of books, I'd recommend on this particular topic, Ryan Halliday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, which is all around overcoming adversity, and not just overcoming it, but embracing it and going through it. I think that so often we are running away from conflict or adversity or challenges. Like, it's early January right now, and people are setting New Year's resolutions and things that they want to change in their life, yet they're unwilling to put in the effort or work to actually make those changes. That's why by February 30th, 85% of people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions. It's like, put in the work. When we have adversity, when we have challenges, those are opportunities for growth. Because guess what? When everything's hunky-dory, do you do anything differently? No, it's smooth sailing. You want to keep it smooth sailing, so you do everything the same. It's only with major challenges in life that cause us to reassess and make pivots. And then ultimately, as time goes on, we're like, oh, thank God we made those pivots, right? And so, having that type of an attitude, I think, is really important to understand that, with adversity, with the challenges comes growth, comes opportunities for growth. If you embrace that and make the necessary changes or adaptations to allow yourself to grow and allow your team to grow. And with that comes alignment. And alignment is one of the pillars that I think is necessary. I know is necessary for any success, both personally or professionally. It starts with alignment.
I love that. Can you expand on that a little bit more though? Because that was one of my questions I wanted to ask, was like, in terms of like building a team. So maybe expand a little bit more, like for the viewers, like, what do you mean by like alignment?
Well, I think you can look at it from any perspective, again, both personally and professionally. Starting with professionally, alignment on what we're here to do as a company. We are all here to get to change people's trajectories. Meaning, if I take an individual who started drinking, 2 Monsters a day or 2, Cokes a day at 12 years old, and continues that habit into their 20s and 30s, I can tell you they will get adrenal fatigue or they will get diabetes. It's just the way it is, right? You can't subject your body to 80 grams of sugar or all that caffeine day in and day out. So we know that if we get that individual especially at a younger age, but at any age, to exchange those negative habits for our products, we will ultimately change their trajectory and change the health of this entire nation, because it's because of sugary drinks is why we have all these epidemics to begin with, specifically around, diabetes and obesity. So that's a big part of it, right? That's why it fits so well with CrossFit, because CrossFit's the other side of that. That's the workout side, the exercise side, but the nutrition side is as important, if not more important, than the exercise side. So alignment also, we go through objectives and key results, OKRs, with each of our team members every quarter. And we align on what the OKRs are for that individual, for that business unit, and for the entire company, so that every individual is moving towards what needs to get done for their business unit. That business unit's moving rocks forward that need to happen for the company. So making sure that we're all in alignment. Being in alignment with your spouse or significant other. There's no way I or Orion could have ever gone into this business if we did not have the support of our spouses. I mean, could you imagine if I was coming home every day and my wife was like, "Oh, you piece of crap, you had this great job, we were making all this money, now we're broke and we're living in a 400 square foot trailer out of ice chests." Like, what if I was taking that kind of heat every day, which she had every right to say, because that's the reality of what happened, but it wasn't. It was supportive and it was encouraging. And in the darkest times, having that support is what got us through to the next level. So alignment, again, is the pillar. And, with alignment, I talk about a concept, the ATM, the ATM machine where people go and they get money out, obviously. Well, I believe life is an ATM, and the ATM stands for alignment, which we've just talked about. The T is trajectory. Okay, making sure that you're on a positive trajectory. I think so many, especially young people, are so focused on velocity over trajectory when it should be the exact opposite. Things will come with time, I promise you. But if you're going the wrong direction and you add a break, or you add finances, or you add whatever it is to that, you're just going to crash and burn even faster. So making sure you're on the right trajectory, you're doing the right things because it's the right thing to do. You're doing them consistently. You're putting in the work. Then when you get a break, then when you get funding, then when you get a key account or more sales, that will fuel that trajectory with velocity. But focus on trajectory over velocity. And then the M is momentum. I think anyone in business can attest that once you we've all gotten momentum in business, and then we've lost momentum. And once you lose momentum, it is the worst feeling ever. You're like, oh my God, what happened? Like, things are slowing down. We're losing momentum. The reason is, and this happens also in relationships, there's so many little things. If you think back to, for those that are married out there or long-term relationships, when you first started dating, right? Think of all the little things that you would do, buying flowers, sending texts, I love yous, opening doors, date nights, all of this. Think of, over time, a lot of that can drop off. And then the relationship starts to lose momentum. Things happen in business like that all the time. Taking care of, your top accounts and putting in personal notes or phone calls and nurturing and coming up with great products, or whatever it is. If you stop doing all those little things, I call them poles in the water. If you need to have 10 poles in the water at any given time. And as soon as you pull back and you only have 2 or 3 poles in the water, you're not going to catch as many fish. So maintaining momentum once you achieve momentum is a key thing as well.
Wow. I love that, man. There were so many good pieces in that, but one that really resonated with me a lot was like the support, right? Like, I know for me, I mean, I've dated my wife now for like 8 years. And when I made this transition this year, 2 months after I quit my job and started the business, we found out that we were having our first child. So support, right? Like, it's been, I mean, I wouldn't be the man I was today, like, without her support. So yep. I think that's such a huge piece. But man, so many good, I love that. So the ATM, I like that. I like that a lot. So talk to me a little bit, like, I mean, you've got to be just engulfed with like personal development. Like, I mean, I'm assuming that's been something big in your life for a really long time.
Yeah, I would go back to, gosh, I mean, the first thing I ever took, I think I was 21 years old, fresh out of college, and I took the Stephen Covey 7 Habits certification course. It was like a 3 or 4 day course, and that was my first taste of it. And I really got into it when I was a chiropractor. I started really consuming books on psychology, behavioral psychology, marketing, sales, and just learning this. And I always had little side businesses and kind of an entrepreneurial streak. So a lot of trial and error. And then I think aligning myself with the right mentors and seeing how they operated, what their MO was and what they were reading, what they were listening to. But the information's all out there, and it's fairly consistent, whether you're reading the Stoics, whether you're reading, contemporaries, whether, the podcasts, like the things that resonate, the ideas at work all kind of percolate to the top. So I would go with, whatever area of interest you have, and you'll start to see common themes, and you can pick those out and go, well, gosh, if this is working across so many different media and so many different platforms and so many different eras, then there must be some validity there to it. And, a lot of it's just kind of going back to the basics of, treating people well, how you would want to be treated, creating value in the world, and continuing to put in the work,
Yeah. Put in the work. That's a big piece.
Yeah, it's a big piece. It's a piece that a lot of people don't want to commit to, but that's what separates, people that are making things happen from, entrepreneurs, we call them. It's like, are you putting in the work or are you not?
Yeah. One thing I love that Gary Vee says is he talks about, if you're not crushing it as an entrepreneur right now in 2019, then you suck. Because
it's never been easier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the barriers to entry now are lower than they've ever been. I mean, just even back when we first started, the minimum production run was 202,000 units. I mean, we're talking tons of money to make that happen. Now you could do a short run of product, or you could fill, a dozen cans. It just with 3D printing, with Amazon, with Facebook ads. Like, there's so many ways to test proof of concept and to establish traction without having to push your chips all in and it being very binary. You either make it or you completely fail. So yeah, it's an exciting time. I agree with Gary. I've been out to his office there and chatted with him a little bit. He's an interesting guy, a total force of nature.
Yeah. Wow. So you got to go up there and chat with him, huh?
Yeah. It was interesting for me. Not so much the information that was provided, because a lot of that, I think Gary, does a great job at resonating with new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are looking to make that leap. So, I mean, we were doing pretty much everything that him and his team were talking about already. What I really got was just his ability to manifest his own reality, right? I mean, the intensity of Gary, and he's with you, he's intense, but he's always 10 minutes late to everything. And there's always people waiting, and then he's gone, and then he's back again. And the cameras are always on him at all times. And like, he's literally creating this whole persona. People are like, oh, is that the real deal? It's like, yeah, it's the real deal because he makes it the real deal, Yeah. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, which, for me, it's like, if you want to be a different version of yourself, then you need to set up the environment to facilitate that version of yourself.
That's so true. That's so true. I talk about all the time. And this is the question I ask myself, like, on a daily basis. It's like, what do I need to do to become the person that I want to become? Mm-hmm. I think that's like, because if we think about it, we take that 10,000 foot view, and it's like, like if we were gonna get there, or maybe we will get there with time, but like, we have to make sure, like you said, that we're actually putting in the work to get there, and not just, expect it to just show up on our doorstep.
Yeah, there needs to be a plan. What's the plan of action? Like, people say, oh, it's January, I want to, lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, what changes are you going to make to actually do that? What's Monday look like from a diet perspective, from an exercise perspective, that was different than the Mondays in December, right? Like, if there's no difference, then just saying it doesn't do anything, or writing it down, that's a step in the right direction, but it still doesn't do anything. You need specific action plans. You need to reverse engineer what your goal is, so you can reverse engineer anything, right? I mean, even if, I want to be, worth, $100 million. Well, you can reverse engineer that given enough time. I mean, we're assuming, oh, we're going to die at 80. Well, what if we live to 400? That makes that a lot more attainable for people, for their mindset, right? And who's to say we won't be living to 400 pretty soon? So it's just, anything's just time, right? It's just, if you're given enough time, and again, coming back to the ATM, time multiplied by the right trajectory, you will get there. You will get there. And so reverse engineering the steps necessary to achieve your goals is, I think, where people fall short, and they need to put more emphasis and effort into, like, what's that look like over time? What specific steps are necessary, and how do I implement, those steps on a daily basis?
Yeah, love that. That's good. So, like, what about for the people though? I mean, I get this question a lot. Like, what about for the people that maybe they don't have necessarily like their why, right? Like, they don't have that driving force. I know, like, for me, like, I mean, I joke about it. It's like I fell into this field and like it became my passion, and then now it brings fulfillment in my life. But like, if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what my journey would have been. So like, what about for the people that maybe just don't know what they want to do, if they're not like super passionate about something?
Yeah, great question. And I think a great time of year to address that question. I would do an exercise that I think I read from Tim Ferriss, and it basically, it takes a couple hours to do. You want to bring up your calendar and go, week by week of 2018, and you basically write down two columns. You write down a good column and a bad column, and anything that you did that really brought joy to your life, that you really enjoyed doing, you write down the good column. And anything that you hated doing or made you miserable, you write down in the bad column, right? And then you go, okay, how can I focus more on the good column? And what are some themes that keep appearing in that good column? And you might find that something in that good column really is reflective of your unique ability. And with unique ability typically lies passion. That's why you can get good at it or be good at it. But also you can develop passion with time. I mean, some people may not have been passionate about, scuba diving when they were taking the class and in the pool and, went out on their first dive in murky, cold water. But the more they got doing it and the more they got to travel the world and see beautiful places, they could become very passionate about scuba diving and even create a career out of it. So don't discount, again, kind of coming back to putting in the work. Sometimes you're like, I don't know, maybe I could be passionate about this. Maybe I could put in the work for a while, give it some time, be patient with it. And you might find yourself getting very passionate around it as your skill set improves.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. I think, just getting your feet wet, that's kind of normally what I suggest. It's like, you don't know until you know. And
Yep.
Like sitting back and not doing anything, like, you might miss out on something that you truly love.
Yep.
So, going into like, I guess, so maybe not for the people that don't know what their why is, but maybe, like, let's just say it's an entrepreneur or anybody that has like, a real strong why behind, what they're doing on this earth. So like, what happens like when we do hit those lows? Like, what happens when we do get, knocked off our horse or whatever? Like, what are maybe some strategies that you would suggest to just kind of like picking yourself back up and reminding yourself of that why?
Yeah, good question. And, this happens, I think, more than outwardly successful people would want to admit. I mean, it happens to me all the time, constantly. And I think there's a reality that we don't, fully appreciate or see or witness. And, I always imagine, I've got like my guardian angel on one shoulder, really encouraging me, kind of like the old movies, and you got a demon on the other shoulder, and that demon is telling you, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, this isn't going to work, it's creating doubt and knocking you off your horse and knocking you and causing you to get into your head and project, right? What is anxiety is just projecting about future events that haven't happened yet. What is depression? It's projecting on events that have already happened and you can't do shit about anyway, right? So you think about like all this psychological baggage is all a result of one thing, of us not or failing to live in the moment. So what is the solution to projecting negatively about the future or projecting negatively about the past? Is being very present. So anytime I find those demons on my shoulder talking in my ear, I'll take a deep cleansing breath. I'll typically go outside. I mean, we're fortunate. We live here in Santa Cruz, California, and we're right on the beach and up in the redwoods. And, I'll just go for a short walk. I'll take some breaths. I'll be intentionally present. Now, I try to be present all the time, but it's difficult. I'll be intentionally present. I'll be watching, the waves, or watching the birds, watching the trees, appreciating things changing colors, appreciating the sunshine when it's cold out or whatever it is, and being present. Because when you're present, you cannot at the same time be projecting about the future or thinking about the past. So that eliminates the negativity. But what it also does is when you're present, you have ultimate appreciation for creation. I mean, you're like, oh my God, like this is incredible. I'm alive right now. This is all happening all around me and I get to witness this. So it's a double win, right? You can't think about future or past, which is the negativity, and you're appreciating the present. Which puts you in a positive trajectory. So that's my, little 5-minute thing that I do when I get knocked off the horse, which happens pretty much every day.
Wow. I love that, man. I joke with my wife all the time now. I'm like, man, I wish we lived in like Colorado or California or something like that, where you just get out in the nature a little bit more, because, I think a lot of people, like, they don't put enough value on that, right? Like they don't get outside enough, they don't get the sun enough, they don't go hiking or whatever it may be, and we just, we sit in these rooms all day every day, and like in terms of depression, like, I mean, yeah, like it can put you in this negative headspace. I think it's like it all goes back to like the stories that we're telling ourselves though too, because like you said, like I could have something happen to me and I could just blow it out of proportion, or I could kind of try to flip the script, take that second and, try to make it into more of a positive.
Yeah. I mean, so many people spiral on, victim status of their past. Let me tell you something. Every single one of us has effed up stuff that happened to us in the past, without exception. I don't care, how much money you had or didn't have. If you had too much money, then you're jacked up because of that. If you didn't have enough, then you can blame it. Your parents all parents are doing the best that they knew how to do. Nobody gets it perfect. I'm like, oh gosh, my parents did X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to do that. Well, I got kids now, and I'm dealing with all different stuff. Like, oh, I thought this was the right path. Nobody knows. You don't know. You're just doing the best that you can. So you got to snap yourself out of victim status. When you're a victim, then the ball's in somebody else's court. It's not even in your own court to improve, to fix, to change your own trajectory. You're constantly beholden to being reactive to something that's already happened, and you're using that as an excuse to fuel your negative trajectory. I mean, think of how crazy that sounds. All right. It's like, no, they didn't do it. You're doing it to yourself. You're doing it to yourself. And by taking that responsibility is liberating, because then the handcuffs come off and you can actually do something about it.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I think that, what you said with the handcuffs, like a lot of people, they feel that way. And like, I think the big reminder to me is like, we live in America. Like most people watching this live in America. Like you have no handicaps on you. Like they're handicaps that you put on yourself.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and people, you look at people, I love looking at successful people that are immigrants. They appreciate that even more. You mentioned Gary Vee. Look at Gary Vee. Look at Bedros. I mean, these people came from different countries, sometimes Soviet countries, over here without a pot to piss in, and saw all the opportunity that's available. So, don't give me any excuses about your background. There's people with way worse backgrounds that didn't have a dime that came to this country and were able to create opportunities for themselves by putting in the work, by being in good alignment, by focusing on that trajectory, putting in the work, and creating momentum and maintaining momentum.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love that. I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, do you, was your dad an entrepreneur, or do you have like entrepreneurship in your family somehow? Or are you the first, or what does that look like?
Oh, my dad was always a hard worker. I mean, I come from 7 kids. I'm the oldest of 7. He used to be a roofer out in the Sacramento heat, swinging a hammer for $7 an hour. Never once took any government assistance, even though I'm sure we qualified for everything under the sun. I was born in a trailer park. I didn't grow up with means, but he worked and he worked and he worked. He worked his way through college, and got a good job, started a good practice, had entrepreneurial side hustles going. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from him. I learned to put in the work. I used to hate it when I was a kid, waking up on Saturday when everyone else is sleeping in and watching cartoons and eating cereal, and he's having me outside and I'm digging ditches or doing whatever needed to be done. But now I'm very appreciative. Like I am not a lazy guy. It drives me insane to see lazy people. Like, I get out there and get it done. Like, give me the shovel. You're digging too slow. I'll do it. Let me do it. Like, so it was really a good example about what hustling's all about.
I love that, man. Mine's kind of similar. My dad was, he was like a plumber and did like the manual labor, but now owns like his own business. But for him, like, I mean, even to this day, like, that man works his ass off. And like, for him, it was always like manual labor. And by him putting me in that environment, right, he would be like, I'd wake up on Saturday morning, same thing. He's like, go clean the garage. And I'm like, I cleaned the garage last Saturday. He's like, I don't care. Like, clean it again. Like, reorganize it. I'm like, okay, whatever. But the work ethic that he instilled in me, like, I'm forever grateful, because I mean, it's been such a driving factor in my life as an adult.
Yeah, and I think people, especially in the entrepreneurial circles, will minimize or demonize manual labor, but there is huge value for putting in learning manual work. And I think as men, just the testosterone release of being out there and swinging a hammer, swinging an axe, or digging with a shovel, or whatever it is. But learning manual work is an important skill set, and I believe it carries you through times of mental toughness. And most CrossFitters know this because they're putting themselves through pain and suffering in the gym that most people in the Globo gym wouldn't even think about. It wouldn't even cross their mind as they're doing bicep curls and leg extensions, chatting with their trainer, drinking a 20-ounce mocha latte from Starbucks or whatever, right? It's like not even part of their reality. So that work does translate to working smarter in the long run, and putting in the mental work necessary to see success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, man. So I want to transition a little bit here, and maybe this is a little more selfishly for me, but I want to dive into a little bit, like, I want to get some maybe advice for entrepreneurs in terms of like building a team. So, like y'all's company, I don't know how many people y'all have on staff now, but pretty big. Can you maybe touch a little bit on like some best practices for building a team other than alignment?
Yeah. When you're building a team, it's always interesting because, especially when you're in startup mode, you're so cash starved, you don't have the finances to hire out positions. So you find yourself doing so many different roles. I mean, I was involved in every aspect of the company, including taking out the trash and, everything: accounting, finance, investor relations, marketing, product development, sales, everything. As things started to break, you have to bring on individuals to help kind of plug those holes in your systems and workload. The biggest mistake that people make is hiring quickly out of necessity. Typically when you're like, okay, we got to hire somebody, things are so broken or about to break that you need somebody in that role quickly. And a lot of times that causes us to make the wrong decision on hiring, meaning we're hiring someone that fits the qualifications on paper, but may not be the right cultural fit may not be in the right alignment with the vision of the company, and so on and so forth. So I would say, as you're growing a team, put as much emphasis, or if not even more emphasis, on finding the right cultural fits as you do as finding the right skill set.
Love that. It's great advice. It's great advice. Well, cool. So diving in and kind of moving forward, I think one big piece, and this is something that was touched on in another podcast, but I wanted to kind of dive into it because I think there's some great points. But it was, just kind of like maybe some advice on like partnering with other brands, other like-minded brands, and, using those partnerships or influencers or however you want to go about it to kind of help you build your movement.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to leapfrog is to partnering with the right influencers or synergistic brands. Again, I would say there has to be a right cultural fit. Our team and the athletes that we've supported over the years have all been good people. Like, we get along with them, we have fun with them. We're not supporting any a-holes. There's people out there that have a reputation of being a jerk, and it's just not people that we'd want to partner with or want to do business with. Same with other companies. How can you provide value first before expecting anything in return? So always keep that in mind. Like, the best connectors, the best networkers that I know are always providing value, connecting people, making deals happen, even when there's nothing in it for them, because they know when there is an opportunity, they're the first person everyone thinks of because of the law of reciprocity.
Love that. Going back and just playing the statement that's always in my head, and I listen to so much Gary Vee, he's probably taken over, but it's just like, play the long game. Right? Like, don't be in it for the short term, because when you play the long game and you think about it, in terms of like what you just said, like, it's just, things will play out. Like, when you take the short stick, like, maybe you might win in the short term, but like in the long term, it might bite you in the butt.
Always play the long game. I couldn't agree with Gary more. I've been talking about that for a long time now. Even in the short term, playing the long game actually pays dividends, because if you're short-minded or you're going in it just for yourself, then you may have a transaction that works out in your favor, but then there's also emotional baggage and challenges that come with that. And I don't want to operate, let me put it in a positive mindset. I want to operate in a world where I have treated everyone with respect, that I've come in contact with, that everyone respects me. I always kind of think of, what's my funeral look like? Who shows up? How many people show up? Right? Like, that kind of thing is important to me. I want the church to be packed out. Like, I want, some of my, closest friends to be carrying my casket. Like, I don't want an empty service. Okay. And I think, if you play that forward in your mind, because it's inevitable, we're all going to die, what does your funeral look like? And that affects how you treat people, because ultimately, if you're a jerk and you go through life as a jerk, then nobody's going to care about you when you need help, and no one's going to show up at your funeral.
So true. That's so true, man. And what a great way to end that, man. Dude, so many so many nuggets for me, so many big takeaways for me. Like, I could probably sit here and talk to you all night, but I know you're a busy man. But dude, what is, as we're coming into 2019, like, what's in store for LifeAid, man? Like, what's the future of LifeAid? What can we expect to see in 2019? Whatever you can share.
Well, we're really focused on execution as a company. So making sure that we're hitting our goals and targets. We're continuing to expand. Our ultimate goal is to be an up and down the street brand, meaning, wherever you go to buy drinks, we're there. And so you're going to see us in a bigger and bigger retail presence. I think we got a little something special we're working on for the gym channel that should be out around summertime as well.
Nice, man. Well, dude, that's so amazing. Again, hey, thank you so much for taking the time today. I reached out to you on a whim here after 3-4 years, and you set it up. So, dude, like, I respect you so much. And like, you know, just, I think everything that you're trying to be and like the legacy you're trying to leave behind and the funeral, like, I mean, you're doing all the right things to get there. So I just want to implore you for that.
Brother, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, my man. Let me pause this off here.